Welcome back, everybody. Very happy to announce the forward part of this midterm conference. Looking forward to this afternoon and looking forward to activate the network in actual European cities. So we have 11 proposals of members of the network to present fieldwork activities, training, schools, workshops, different possibilities. Slobodan and Luís, as Working Group 4 leaders, organized the call together with the core group and organized also the presentation. It is an invitation to present, an invitation for all of us to discuss, and also it is an invitation for all the members of the different working groups to possibly connect to one or more of those initiatives. So most likely tomorrow with the working group meetings, this will also be on the table, how the different initiatives relate to the working group agendas. I'll leave the floor to you because we have a dense program. So please, Slobodan and Luís, you're the moderators for the afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. We hope you had all a great lunch. We will start the afternoon sessions that are related with the proposals for organizing fieldwork events. Saying, first of all, that somehow this was, and we are in the midterm conference, and it was really believed, and in these discussions inside the core group, that somehow this midterm conference presents a kind of a turn in the process of development of this cost action. So in the middle, somehow, that's why the rewind, forward, and play that is in the subtitle of this conference in Porto. It introduces the step forward. It's a kind of a proposal to the development of the work inside the network. We called it cities and fieldwork activities for the subsequent years. We have to know that, and it's quite important, that this was based in a call to all the network, call for expressions of interests in organizing fieldwork events, and it's important to know what is going to happen today in the afternoon, that somehow these proposals are not closed proposals, they are exactly that, embryonic proposals that will be presented to all the network, to people that are here in person and people that can follow us in the media, with other media, and to know that somehow they are very preliminary, and this is quite important to know. So it was very fast between the discussions in the webinars and the starting of the discussion, how the network should evolve, that somehow posed this kind of quick pace to this turn inside the network could happen here in Porto. This was somehow what was in the call, and maybe I will read it because it's quite clear the intentions that were behind the call. Somehow, as we approach the second phase of writing urban places and COVID restrictions are being progressively lifted across Europe, we could start moving from reflection to action. The thoughts and conversations we've had in the past 2 years around theories, methods, fieldwork, and communication should also affect reality. It's time to put into practice all the important things that we've learned. So it's really clear about what this afternoon sessions will be proposing to all the network. In this second phase, we would like to reshuffle how we organize ourselves, moving from thematic working groups to teams that can focus on specific mid-sized cities where different working group members collaborate based on their interests and affinities with external parties. It's very important that the proposals that we are going to have in this afternoon, they are open to all the network. So the main aim is to gather and connect all the network, so to reestablish the team. So this is a kind of a proposal for beginning work, but the proposal will evolve in terms of the team and of the connections with the several interested parties, with the stakeholders, institutions, the media partners. That will happen somehow after this first moment of launching the second phase of the Writing Urban Places. Somehow this is what was done. It was also in the call that we sent. So we are reaching out all action members who live, know, or work in a mid-sized European city, even if this concept is still being discussed, and feel capable of establishing concrete and productive collaborations via their academic institutions or with local private and public institutions, media, other researchers, students, citizens, and communities. To cover all these points, each proposal should include the host city, a responsible organizing party, individual or institution, potential stakeholders to involve, and a succinct description of the activities that would constitute the event. By keeping this call and the definition of fieldwork events somewhat open, we want to embrace the enormous viewpoint diversity that defines our network. In return, we hope to receive wonderful, exciting, and clearly formulated proposals. So that's what we are expecting this afternoon, to learn and to see the presentations of several cities. They are organized by cities. It's an important point that will somehow require some feedback from all the network to establish connections and to, as Carlos said it before in the introduction, to press play tomorrow and start the discussions, the dialogues, and the collaborations inside all the network. Somehow this was all the process was very quick, and it's really important that you all know that somehow these are proposals that were developed in a very short time span. So it's in this context that we have to assume the presentations that we are going to see in a moment. Somehow this also expands all the points that this beautiful map can show us, where fieldwork, where real people, real contexts somehow enter as our main focus, and somehow to start passing to action in a way. So this was what was asked for the presenters. Well, this is obviously quite difficult to have a clear definition of all these different points, but somehow was these different points that we asked as a response to the call for us to and to be presented somehow today in the afternoon. This being said, we will start by calling each one of the cities and the presenters to make the presentation in more or less 10 minutes. That was somehow what was established. And then to have, in the end of the first part of this afternoon, we will have a question and answer, also a small debate that can allow us to discuss and to respond, for the presenters to respond to some issues or questions that are to be posed.
Thank you, Luís. Just briefly, before calling the first presenters, basically Dalia and Elina, to present the project for Tampere. Just to remind you, I'm really happy that I see familiar faces, but I see also a lot of new faces, which is really good, because I want, and many of you are basically not, maybe still not super familiar how cost works. But therefore I want to repeat something very important that Luís already said, that actually the projects that are going to be presented, and something that was discussed the whole morning, through the whole morning session. These projects are proposed by members of cost members from various working groups. But we would really hope that today, and especially tomorrow during the discussions, many of you are going to be inspired to contact the proposers and to take active part in organizing the event, from the theoretical or from methodological or from part which is referring to communication. I mean, each of the working groups basically have to overlap into the next, let's say, play phase. So I'm really encouraging you to appreciate what you are going to, what is going to be presented as something that could be also part of your work further on. That's very important. And now I think that we can call Dalia and Elina to present the first proposal. We have 11. Yeah, thank you.
Which is narrating Hiedenranta, stories of objects and subjects of urban places.
Hello. This is Dalia again, here representing Team Tampere with the workshop narrating Hiedenranta, stories of objects and subjects of urban places. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a doctoral researcher in the School of Architecture at Tampere University, and my research lies somewhere in between architecture and critical urban studies. And my research is about following different cases of appropriation of abandoned urban spaces across different cities in Latin America. And one thing that I have learned is that about appropriation is, as we learned this morning, it is transformative, it is manipulative, it is affective, but it is very political. So, yeah, just really quickly, some notes. So we are going to be hosting it. It will take place from the 1st to the 3rd of June of 2022. The organizers are me. Oh, sorry. And sorry. The organizers are me and Elina, who will speak about herself. Yes.
Well, so happy to be here. I'm Elina Alatalo, part of the same group from Tampere University, but my backgrounds are in architecture, then moving to the group working on environmental policy. And what we can offer here to you with this case study is that we have been working on the location for the last 5 years quite deeply, together with the people, with the citizen, with the different groups, and as well with the city organization. So it's quite a specific possibility.
Sorry, Elina. But together with Elina, it has been really interesting because we have similar interests, and we started to organize a course called Urban Activism. And through that course, we were following different cases with the people and the objects that they're transforming. And this is kind of the inspiration, or we're building on that course and the same kind of framework for this action. And also very recently we started to create a group that we call the Insurgent Spatial Practices Group, so we're kind of also here to represent them. We are expecting 20 participants, hopefully. So the aim will be, we will be in the area Hiedenranta, and you will learn more about that. And the aim is, or what we want is that people from our action come and help and tell us about some methods to gather the material, to gather stories, discourses, voices, narratives that are related to the actors and the objects that constitute Hiedenranta. We also want methods to analyze those stories, and also methods or ways of how we can present our discoveries in creative and narrative ways. So now to Finland, Elina.
So Finland is quite in the north, and here is the capital Helsinki, and Tampere is located a little bit more towards north. This one. And the city of Tampere is quite specific in between two lakes. Here is the center of the city, and you have a rapid running from the upper lake to the down, and that is how the city's industrial era got powered, you could say. So it is a mid-sized city, about 240,000 inhabitants. As I already said, there is a long industrial history, both in textile and metal. Thus, the nickname Manchester of Finland. Lots of red brick buildings, especially around the rapid. And yeah, there are several very beautiful landscapes. One of them also a national landscape of Finland, of this industrial era. And our location for the fieldwork event is here. It's called Hiedenranta, a former industrial area as well. And there is lots of empty space just next to the lake, about 3 kilometers from the city center. And yeah, there has been some agriculture early on, but then later became a cellulose factory in the early 20th century. That was closed down and left quite a few empty buildings. City of Tampere bought the premises in 2014, and quite quickly the gates were opened for public use, and lots of interim and temporary uses were invited in, so citizens could take the place into use together with different kind of collaborative projects. And there is quite a huge infill buildings process going on. There was a competition, and the aim is really to build a new center to the Tampere city, the western center, so about 25,000 new inhabitants, so it's an amazing amount, quite extraordinary. And it is based on a new tram line and also a new artificial island. It's very much discussed, all this how sustainable it is or not, even though this new part of the city has a high eco-social sustainability goals. But this is the narrative of the city, or what they are offering at the moment. And what we would like to do together with many of you is to look into the kind of a pair of objects and subjects, meaning places and people who are acting in these places, or who have been taking the places into use, or who are really like building even these places. And we want to look into like more the kind of micro-narratives, or even like alternative narratives. And yeah, we noticed that this dichotomy is a bit, it's more kind of a working tool, because of course the objects themselves also have their agencies, and we are very interested in those. But I'm just going to run through quickly what these pairs could be about, and let's see when we get closer to the workshop itself if it's happening. There is lots of change all the time going on, so these might be different. But for example, there is an indoor skateboarding hall that has been built by the skateboarders themselves into one of these factories. Then there is a cultural space called Kuivaamo that is also hosting, or there are different actors, mainly a circus and a cultural association. Then you have one building where you have artists and artisanals. It's called Paja, like a workshop. Then you have a sauna that has been built quite recently, and there you have the people who are using the sauna are also facilitating the use of this public sauna. You have a garden that is eatable, and you can also, like yourself, start cultivate their things. There are diverse user groups. And then even you could have the lake as a space or close, or here it's more this pier where you have floating gardens. Or you could have also the lake that you have some activists who are opposing this infill or this building of the islands, or you have also entrepreneurs who are at the moment cleaning the lake because of its industrial heritage and some problems related to that.
Yeah, so like I said, we are proposing a 3-day workshop. In the first day, the idea is that we have fieldwork. It's a fieldwork day. The second day would be the analytical day. And the third day, we would be presenting a little bit more in detail. Well, of course, we hope we will welcome you there, but we are going to start with an exercise about learning about this master narrative. What is the city of Tampere, or let's say the urban planning department, what is their narrative about the place? But our workshop is really going to be about those counter narratives about place. So in the first, and we are inviting you, anybody of you, to give, if some method comes in mind, that you could propose this method, and then in the second part of the day, to gather information. Then in groups you would be divided, and you would be applying those methods for fieldwork to gather information. In the second day, you would be going through an analytical process, and then you will learn other methods to maybe present creatively, narratively, to synthesize those discoveries or findings. And in the afternoon, you would be planning those presentations, and we are planning to have like a public event more in the city where we invite anybody from Tampere, and we can continue to discuss these kind of themes in the city. And in the third day, you would be doing the creative presentations, and in the afternoon, we would have a public event with discussions and final words, and we hope to have a nice walk in Pispala, which is kind of a workers' place in the ridge very close to Hiedenranta. And yeah, we are looking for anybody from our cost action. If it rings a bell, if you're interested to, do you think you can support us with some sort of method that you think would be good, either to learn the stories or histories or whatever of the objects, but then also how do we gather information about the stories of our subjects, of our activists. We think we will be supporting that part as well. And if you think of any ways to present creatively and narratively, we're also looking forward to that. Our impact, we think we're gonna, well, for us as a cost action, to learn about, test and develop narrative methods, create and build academic and public awareness about these actions that are happening, to strengthen the interdisciplinary collaboration between the cost action members and Tampere University, ourselves as well, and also to provide new perspectives to local researchers like ourselves, and also resignify the area and renew the discussion with the developers. It's quite a heated debate what's going on there, because it's really strongly profit-driven urban development. And we also want to activate or help activate, or maybe even the networks to get to know each other more in Hiedenranta. Regarding the media, well, our possible outcomes, well, we would hope to be part of the publication of in the Writing Place Journal. We want to have spoken story in radio or podcast from the YLE, which is a national radio or television media, blog posts and signs, and hopefully new research collaborations. But we did want to make a point with the media strategy. We do see it very critically. We want to be clear that we have to be clear to whom are we really are sharing this knowledge with. There was talk before, Jorge was mentioning something about discourses, which discourses get said, which don't. And so we are proposing really to engage with the YLE, which is this more national and less biased local, well, it's both radio and television. Also other local newspapers, but very critically. Like I said, also we hope to engage with the Facebook pages of different groups. And, but we also propose rare media. Like, we want to be clear that it's not all about these very corporate media, or even some local media that are quite biased, quite profit-driven and so forth. So we want to be very critical of that. So yeah, well, rare media, we can talk about that then. Also in our blog, in the Insurgent Spatial Practices blog. And then we also hope to have more self-made printed media, posters, flyers, signs that can be distributed, but not only these big corporate media. And yes.
Yeah, I'm just going to interrupt here at this point, because one very important thing if working in Hiedenranta would be the kind of a trust relationship with the people and with the communities, because for us, the group of researchers with whom I work, it has taken, or it's been a 5-year project to now be really in the grassroots, and that is something special that we can offer, but then again we need to be very understanding that these people might share us their heart, and then again like be even in quite vulnerable situation at the moment when there is a new phase of the infill building coming on.
Yes, and that's all from our side. I don't know if we take questions now or not. Later. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Elina and Dalia, thank you very much for very precise and clear presentation. Of course, there are plenty of work ahead and challenges, of course, how to transfer the methodologies and to combine that with the field work and with the aims that you presented. But that's the beautiful part of the field work, in a way. Now I will ask Sonja Novak to present the field work which is connected with the city of Osijek in Croatia, and the presentation with the title Urban Chronicles in an Empirical Context. Sonja, please.
Thank you very much. Okay, so first of all, I have to say that I completely agree with Yuri. It shouldn't be called a training school. I propose that it's called an engaging school instead of a training school. But this is just a note in between. First of all, we would like to introduce the host institution. This is actually my institution, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences in Osijek. And this reveals that the engaging school we are proposing is actually one from a literary and cultural urban identity perspective. And we would like to focus on 3 elements. The first one is theoretical, the second one is empirical, and the third one is the creative aspect of this engaging school. As you can see, the host city is Osijek in Croatia. This is the 4th largest city in Croatia with about 120,000 inhabitants. So in terms of southeastern Europe, it actually fits the description of mid-sized European city. It's not a metropolis, it's not a capital, but it's also not a small town, so something in between. And the dates we propose to organize this engaging school are April, probably in the last week of April. And it will last about 2 or 3 days, possibly 3 if we can stretch it with cost and with everything. So let me briefly explain the rationale behind it, behind this literature and cultural perspective. Osijek is quite a multi-ethnic and multi-cultural city, and this is reflected in its cultural and urban history and also identity. And we invite doctoral students within our PhD study program to take part in this. But what we would like from you as a COST network is to invite your PhD candidates to visit Osijek in these 3 days and live it through what we would call spatial temporal walks. While doing these walks, we will be reading from 2 novels directly concerning with the city of Osijek. For the next 2 or 3 minutes, please bear with me. I would like to read you some extracts from these novels. Let me begin by saying something about my hometown Osijek. It is situated on one of the most fertile plains in Europe, on the shores of the navigable river Drava, which throws itself into the Danube a short distance downstream. one of the most important European trade routes, running from Vienna all the way to Constantinople, passes nearby. In its early days, Osijek consisted of several independent town districts which differed so much among themselves in their outcomes, in their customs and ways of life, that they even formed separate municipalities in Empress Maria Theresia's time. The lower town was for a long time the most prominent. By the beginning of the 19th century, the upper town had clearly overtaken the lower town. The fortress, Tvrđa, was originally built by the Turks as defense against Christian military advancements from the north. Close to the fortress Tvrđa was a 7-kilometer-long wooden bridge heading towards the village of Darda. In its time, the bridge was considered to be an 8th wonder of the world. While nothing new had been built in the lower town for a long time, a new street named Komitatskasse, or Županijska Street, County Street, emerged in the upper town in the 1860s. The street soon became the town's commercial and social center of gravity. It was a wide road running from the main square to the upper town down to Market Street, and from there through the nearby villages Čepin and Tenja, all the way to the towns Đakovo and Vinkovci and Bosnia. This is from Vilma Vukelić's novel, A Past Rescued from Oblivion, which was translated 2020, but it is actually a novel written by a female German author, mid-20th century, and the original language is German. It was in the 90s translated into Croatian. So this example illustrates how Osijek is truly a multi-ethnic, multinational, multicultural city. To move on, I'm going to read you two extracts from a recent novel called Unterstadt by Ivana Šojat, published in 2009. I couldn't recognize the city that appeared to have smiled at me slightly with its hyacinths. Everything was somehow different, somewhat changed, as if it had shifted to the side. The supermarket that used to be next to the train station, where the students and football fans used to buy and drink loads of beer before going to college or to a football match, only to get wasted and throw up all over the trains, was now gone. At first, I thought I'd go down Radić Street and then take the tram all the way to Lower Town. So I headed towards Dival Street. I dragged my feet along the dark, always badly lit street that stretched along the tram line all the way to Klein Street. Nothing had changed, I thought. This street still made me feel fright. The war had come and gone, I thought, but everything had stayed the same. The city had continued along its own path, like a stubborn old man going back to his old habits. I almost ran all the way to Dival Street. We walked very slowly towards the cemetery in the lower town. The cemetery was located on an elevated part of the sandy riverbank where the river Drava meanders right and where the winds during winter time howl and scream like demons, like the damned souls in hell. Yes, that's what the old townspeople call this place, hell. The Austrian crown had orders to erect a cemetery there, far away from the town at that time. The dead had fled away from the living to hell, but the city flooded over them and grew over them like the tide. And the last part, she almost smiled when they stepped into Psunjska, especially when they glanced at the gazebo in front of which Peter proposed to her. But then, quite suddenly and indeterminately, she realized that the city is not the same anymore. It was as if someone had appropriated it for a second, stolen it, and then returned it to her completely changed. So what we propose is a very engaging, very creative, and very experience-based school for PhD candidates, where we would like them to join us for walks along the city, and where we will read some extracts from the novels and where they can visit, experience these places. So as mentioned before, the two different novels can really be considered as two urban chronicles of the city of Osijek by two female writers. This alone raises a lot of possible research questions and also a lot of things to think about and contemplate. This is the program we propose. The first part is obviously theoretical. We are doing the school in cooperation with the Osijek Faculty of Arts, where a colleague of ours, Leo Raffolt, will provide a theoretical course entitled Space in Literature. In the afternoon, there will be a first walk organized by a colleague of ours, Stefan Jug from the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences with me, where we will read the older novel from Vilma Vukelić. On the second day, we will continue another walk through some other parts of town where we will present and read Šojac's novel. And then, hopefully, the last part will be a creative workshop where the students and participants can express themselves in various ways through sketches, through creative writing, through performances. And we are very happy to have another colleague from the Academy of Arts organize the creative workshop with me. And we will hopefully also have Susanna with us, who has volunteered to be there for the creative workshop. And I would also hereby like to invite you, if you find yourself in any of the parts of the program, please do come forward and let us know where you would like to participate, either as organizers, workshop leaders, or please do disseminate the information to your PhD and doctoral students. The last part I have to address is the media strategy. I took the liberty to change the chart a little bit. So on the left, you see the stakeholders and the target audience we want to reach. So first of all, of course, we want to reach the academia and the students. Then we also need to reach the policymakers. And lastly, we also want to reach the broader public with our action. In the middle column, you see the mediums which we will use. For example, the academia, of course, we have a feuilleton in our local newspaper called Sveučilišni glasnik, where we normally publish the ongoing projects at our faculty and at our university. This is distributed freely to all interested parties, so that's a very good way to announce calls and to report afterwards about the events. Of course, for the opening address, we would like to invite some policymakers in Osijek. They love taking this opportunity and they drag the media with them. So this is a way we can approach them and we can get them involved into our project. And lastly, of course, to reach the broader public, our faculty has certain channels, communication channels, and we like to use them very, very much. Of course, there's a local website, Osijek 031, Osijek with a cup of coffee, where you can, on a weekly basis, see a lot of announcements for events. We have a PR person at our faculty who normally contacts them in advance and communicates our events. There's a local radio station and local TV stations. In the third column, you see the contacts we aim to engage into our media strategy. Some of them are our own PhD students who will be, of course, taking part in the program. Thus, we can use them to make the announcements in advance, but also to report after the event. And you have other contacts which we normally use to disseminate. So I thank you very much for your attention, and we'll leave the questions and answers for later.